have an 04 Chrysler Sebring here, 2.5 liter engine, and this car is doing something really weird. Let me show you what it is. Nobody's sitting in the car's in park, and as you can see, the speedometer is reading about 15 miles an hour right now. The shifter in park. And also, if you look at the scan tool, I've got it hooked up, you'll see that the output sensor is also reading too. Now this problem then only happens when the fans kick on. The fans just kicked off and the speedometer and everything went back to normal. So it seems like when the fans kick on, for whatever reason, the speedometer and the output sensor on the transmission start to read. It also will put the transmission in the second gear. If you're sitting there and you have the shifter in drive and this problem happens, you'll feel a little bump and it'll go into second. So we're really not quite sure what's causing this. I'll make another video when I find out what it is. I believe it has something to do with the fans kicking on and maybe some current or bleeding over to the output sensor on the transmission, something to that effect. But that's what we have going on. If you sit here and let it run for a few more minutes, the fans will kick on and the speedometer will start reading again. So it's kind of a crazy problem. We're going to investigate it further and see what happens. Thanks for watching. Okay, just to show you again, the fans kicked on and there's the problem again. And as you can see, on the scan tool, the output sensor is reading and the car's not moving because it's in park. So I'm going to let this run for just a minute, and when the fans kick off, the speedometer will go to 0, and we'll see what happens with the output RPM. But everything, the output RPM should be 0 right now, and obviously the speedometer shouldn't be reading 0 because the car's sitting in the driveway, it's not moving, so it's in park. So we've got some kind of crazy electrical problem happening, but we're going to let it run for a minute and let the fans just kicked off. There they go, and the speedometer goes back to 0. It's kind of funny, but because the output RPM is still reading here, and that should be at 0 too. So that's kind of weird that that's still reading. Okay, there, the fans just kicked on. That problem's happening again. It's not in limp. That's weird. What else is going on here? The overdrive is working okay. There's the engine RPMs, but the transmission is in second gear too. So fans kick on, transmission goes to second. Output RPM, you can see it was at 0 because I'm in drive now, and it was at 0. And then as soon as those fans kicked on, that output RPM went up to 860, and the speedometer started to work. So let's just give it a second here, let the fans kick off and see what happens now. Alright, the fans just kicked off, thing went to 0, and as you can see, the output RPM dropped to 0 too, and it does that when it's in gear. Let me put it in park and see what it does. I went to park, and the output RPM is still showing 0. And it looks like we're still in. Let's see if we're still in second gear here. No, we're in park now, so we shifted back into gear though. Okay, we're back into overdrive again. I'm going to let it kick on one more time and see what happens here. Actually, we're still in second gear. That's what I wanted to see. So even in drive sitting still, we're commanding second. So it's something to do with the fans kicking on, I think, is making the output sensor and the speedometer read and putting the transmission in the wrong gear. So we'll try to figure it out and make another video and see what happens. Alright, there it is again one more time before I close this one out. And what's the output RPMs doing here? Where are they? Output RPMs are right there. Yep, see, they just started reading. They just started reading there. So it looks like we're getting a false signal somewhere. And if I cycled the key, what was happening is it would start out in first, so you would be in first gear. When the problem happened, it would actually bump it up to second. I guess it stays in second gear to cycle the key. You would actually be sitting there and this problem would happen and you would get a bump and that thing would go to second. But I would have to cycle the key and get the process to start over again for that to happen then. So we'll figure it out and make another video. Thanks.